everyone to Pets Chats with the APBC. We are the Association of Pet Behaviour Counsellors, and we're here to teach you how to be the best pet owner or behaviourist in the world. I'm Lauren Hewitt-Watt, and today I'm joined by Erik Prins, who is a provisional APBC member. Erik is going to talk to us all about greyhounds and racing and behaviour, so I'm really excited to hear about it. So hi, Erik. Thank you for coming on.
Hi. Nice to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited. And we've got a picture as well, which we don't normally have, which is amazing because I know people love to see the visuals. So Erik, could you start by just telling us a little bit about yourself and how you came into greyhounds and racing and behaviour and all of that?
Yeah, so that process started about 12 years ago. We were thinking about relocating. And one of the things that we also wanted is a dog.
Okay.
Now, on top of that, we also were thinking of expanding our family. So we really had to think about our situation and make sure that whatever breed we chose would actually fit our lifestyle. There's quite a number of dogs that we considered. We went from Dachshund, the Lancashire Heeler, the Nova Scotia dog trolling retriever, a mouthful. But we then visited a pet show in London. And we actually stumbled upon Greyhounds. The Greyhound Trust, I think, was showcasing the hounds. And we actually got interested because one of the hounds was literally leaning against me. And we actually got quite interested as we were chatting. We visited a number of other shows. And we constantly came back to the Greyhound. Now, once we moved, we actually went to a local rehoming center. And there we actually stumbled upon our first dog. And that's her, Charlotte. So that was our first greyhound that we adopted. Now, from the adoption, she was a real ambassador of the greyhound. Was very engaging with people, but also very kind. We were very lucky with her, I must say, because also when our daughter was born, she was just brilliant. But also in the way that she actually fitted our lifestyle, because we were still both working and we were away a lot. Initially, I had a camera up to check how she was doing, but all they did was sleep. But from there, I started out in raising awareness, been to crafts with that. We did some fundraising with her. And then I went into fostering sort of the more challenging hounds. And I've been doing that for a little while now. We just finished with one that had, unexplained aggression. He's now in a home or another foster home where, we need to try and find the right place. But he's found his calm now, and that's brilliant. So satisfying. So that's how that journey sort of started.
Brilliant. Okay. And, it must be a really good way of building up your skill in terms of fostering and bringing these dogs into your home and getting to know the more difficult ones, because I can imagine that, you have some tricky dogs that come in. Have you got one is this the one with the unexplained aggression? Is that probably the hardest one you've worked with, or have there been
it is, because that was a 10-month project almost. He had a number of bite incidents with 3 other places that he was. So he was sort of walking a tightrope. I took him in. Wasn't particularly sure whether I should, but I just felt, no, let's try and let's let's work with him, and that has been a real slow process. Because it's first trying to understand what triggers the aggression, and then it was sort of also helping him to understand that, or learning him to deal in different ways with his behavior and to circumstances. But I must say it on occasions it was quite stressful, because we've got a 6-year-old daughter, so we needed to keep everybody safe.
Yeah.
We also had the question about sort of a disguised question, because I was asked, "Do you think he's happy?" And to me, it was sort of more of a disguised welfare question rather than going straight into, what do you think about PTS? But to me, it was a bit like, well, from when he came in of not eating, being extremely stressed, to not even, walks were a problem, to actually where he is now in terms of really enjoying his food, looking forward to going out for a walk. To me, he's already a changed dog, and not a scenario for PTS, so euthanasia.
Oh, that's really amazing. You've been able to bring him up and make him feel a lot better, and doing it, throwing yourself in at the deep end and doing it, with him in your home, because it's very different, I think, when you're fostering. You're like, I'm going to do this, compared to doing consultations. So
yes, because in a way, with a consultation, you can almost walk away from the problem.
Consultation, you're
which
saying,
sounds a bit
you,
maybe not kind, but
but
you're trying to help people, and I've done on my blog and Facebook page, I've done element living with an aggressive dog, because I think trainers, behaviorists often forget the emotional side on the human side, in terms of the impact that aggression does have, and the stress that it can cause. And to also in a way to have experienced that myself is hopefully will make me an even better behaviorist. But it has made me ask more often the question, how are you feeling? And what is this doing to you? Because our emotions have an impact on our dogs, and they are masters in sensing that. So we also need to be careful sometimes with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll make sure your blog and your Facebook page are all up, so people can come and find it, because I think that'll be really useful for people to go and read as well. And kind of changing gear a little bit in terms of greyhounds, obviously, and I actually don't know a huge amount about this. What would you say? So when they go from, what's their journey basically? How do they get from being in the rehoming centre, or even being, at the racing centre, to then getting to be someone's pet dog? What does that journey look like? Because I'd love to know.
So, I must say, it depends a little bit on the kennel itself, because some rehoming charities use foster homes solely. Others will have a potential combination of the two. And then you have the true kennels, who will equally use fosters, but generally that is more in terms of looking for the foster parents to keep the dog. So it's a kind of option. Now, the way that I like to talk about the journey is that it can be extremely stressful for the dog. If you think about their racing career, that sometimes can be a year to up to a couple of years. So their life in the racing kennels could be up to 5-6 years that I've been there. some racing trainers will have it in their home environment.
Okay.
Some will literally have it as if you like, a business unit. So a lot of dogs are actually not used to, first of all, other breeds, but they're also just not used to the home environment. So going from the racing kennels where they've been for 5 years, once they stop racing, they can be on a waiting list to go to the rehoming kennel.
Okay.
Timing, I can't say. That depends sometimes on how quick the turnover is at the rehoming center, and that can sometimes it's quick, sometimes it's not. So that's difficult to say. But if you leave aside the waiting time, and if you just think about the scenario where the dog will go from the racing kennel into the rehoming kennel into a home, sometimes that is literally within a week.
Okay.
It can be longer. Some dogs, and the one that I initially fostered here, Barney, he whilst we're doing lots of marketing, nobody was interested in him. So at some point we just felt, he's already part of the family, so let's just take him. But some can be there for a while. Others are literally going from racing kennel into the rehoming kennel and then into the new home. And well, as you can imagine, that can be extremely disorientating and stressful for them. Which also means that in terms of the volunteers and the staff, what they know a lot about the Greyhound, they may not know much about the individual. One, because it might actually go so quick. But also, in terms of the information that they have is actually very limited. There's generally not much information provided about the dogs itself, other than the official paperwork, which is their racing history, their medical history, etc., etc. So that's sort of a little bit in a nutshell how that journey goes. And like I said, a lot of people don't appreciate, the anxiety that can cause for a dog, and I've had it in consultations, and I'll talk about it a bit more later. That people come to me and they say, "Oh, the dog doesn't want to play."
Yeah.
And I've asked, how long have you had this particular hound? Only a couple of weeks. And it's a bit like, yeah, okay, you need to give him more time.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that leads really nicely actually into what would you want to let Greyhound owners know, or anyone who's a prospective Greyhound owner? What do you think that they should be more aware of when they look into these hounds?
So, well, for me, it's not just a case of what prospective owners need to know. I would also say trainers and behaviorists need to understand the breed better, because sometimes, and I'll come back to that, but without knowing certain elements, it's sometimes more challenging to do actually the right thing. So as I mentioned already, it's quite important to allow them time to settle. Now, this can be from a couple of months to up to a year before they start to really show their true colors. And obviously that's individual differences, etc., etc. Now, they can be very sensitive. So yeah, you don't necessarily need to put them in cotton wool and all that, but they are generally a bit more sensitive than most dogs. Uh, as I also already mentioned, they're not necessarily used to the home environment.
Yeah.
So the reflection of themselves in a wooden floor can really spook them. Um,
Yeah, that's not something
uh,
people would think of at all.
no, and I mean, sometimes the wooden floor or tiled floors can be quite slippery,
Hmm.
and it feels weird on their pads.
Yeah.
So they can be quite sort of tentative and maybe not sure, and maybe not even wanting to go on that type of
Mhm.
floor. Mm. It's the same with the TV. They've probably never
Yeah.
seen, heard a
Yeah.
radio, TV, etc. So all our normal noises and sounds
Yeah.
and visual elements that we have in a home
Mm.
can be completely alien to them.
Yeah.
And this is why I say, you need to give them time. You need to allow them to acclimatize to,
Mm.
for them, sometimes an alien environment. So for the first 2 months, we
Mm.
generally advise them, owners, to actually have a muzzle on them.
Okay.
This is couple of reasons for that. First of all, the dog that you have, you don't know.
Mm.
Um, so whilst you're trying to learn and understand what they're like, and this is particularly in terms of other dog breeds.
Mm.
Now, and Caesar, the black dog with the blue
Mhm.
muzzle.
Okay.
When I first had him, he was extremely reactive to other dogs. Mm. Um, so we needed a muzzle on him. And even to this day, he can sometimes be fine, and then suddenly he just
Okay.
snaps. Um,
Yeah.
and this is why it's so important to make sure that they wear a muzzle
Mm.
whilst you get to know them. A lot of people take them off very quickly,
Okay.
and then we sometimes get the bite incidents.
Mm. Okay.
um,
So it's kind of
um,
listen to the advice and keep the muzzle on for that period
yeah,
of
please
time.
do,
Yeah.
because unfortunately, dogs, and this is how I sometimes describe it, they will pay with their lives for a
Mm.
mistake that we potentially make. Um,
That's so true. Yeah.
so, just try and make sure that, you adhere to the advice that the rehoming centers are giving you.
Yeah.
Um,
Especially because it's
uh,
rescue as well. It's not, this isn't, there's not that much leeway. If there's a dog that is causing a lot of incidents and they can't find a home, it's not that that dog can't be rehabilitated, but they don't have the resources to necessarily do that. So yeah, I think that's a really important point.
yes. I mean, also, they are actually very used to it. So for
Mm.
them, some people think it's cruel. My view is, well, one, they've been used to it for most of their lives.
Yeah, that's true.
On the racing track, they are required to actually have them on.
Yeah.
Barney, the one with the orange muzzle, I sometimes joke because when he's now running with Caesar,
Mm.
he can be quite snappy.
Okay.
It's almost like he doesn't like losing, and he's telling him off. Um, because he's actually been very successful as a racing dog,
Oh.
and I actually said, this is probably his winning tactic is to snap at other dogs that were coming
Put them
up.
off.
But yeah, so he was quite successful. I think on average, probably about 70% of his races were top three or higher.
Wow, that
Uh,
is really successful. Wow.
yeah. So he really is, or was, a successful dog.
Mm.
Now, the other thing, um, cats.
Yeah.
Um, some may very well enjoy having cats around and won't be a problem. I would say most don't, and we've got cats around, and as you can see, they are really looking out, trying to see if they can find the cat.
Okay.
So with them, I just couldn't trust them
No.
to have. And when they see a cat, with Charlotte, I managed to sort of. Almost habituate her, desensitize her to cats, and she wouldn't react as much. She would just, at some point, just look and acknowledge that a cat is there. These guys, no. If they see a cat, they will go ballistic.
Yeah, and that's natural, isn't it? I assume that's what they've been bred to do. So they.
It is.
Yeah.
So they are trained to react to small, fluffy things.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that is from a very young age. Almost, probably an exaggeration, but shortly after they're born, they're already molded into this,
and they're probably being bred for it as well. You're only going to breed from successful greyhounds, aren't you, for racing? So they're having the genetic, everything bred into them to see a fluffy thing and run. So
no, absolutely. So this is where you just need to be careful. The kennel that I help out with, they have cats there, and they will do a cat test.
Oh wow! Okay.
So the dogs are muzzled, and they are then looked to see how they react. Because obviously there are some that want a greyhound, but also have a cat at home, or a little dog. So it's always with caution that is approached, and we'll make sure that they will get on and are not going to react to the cat, which is what, as you say, they've been trained to do.
Yeah, it's not their fault, is it? So brilliant.
No, it's not. It's also a mistake that I once made with Charlotte. Now, with greyhounds, it's best not to use retractables.
Okay.
Personally, if I put a dog trainer hat on, I would even say, you don't use.
Yeah.
Because greyhounds can get up to full speed in 6 strides, which is between 35 and 45 miles an hour. If you have a retractable,
that is going to be a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, that's and I did with Charlotte. I used a training lead, and she went and almost ripped my arm off. And probably didn't help her neck either. Because it's literally just and like I said, I was just a novice owner. Being a little bit ignorant about that. But it's a lesson I've never forgotten.
No, that's a really good thing. I didn't know that about the 6 strides, so that's really useful to know.
Yeah, that's really, they get up to top speed so quickly. And it's also the way that they run is quite impressive when you see the sometimes the slow motion videos or the photos where they literally briefly do not even touch the ground. And it's just such an impressive sight. This is also one of the things that when I was in the Netherlands with Charlotte, at one point had a GPS tracker on her. And we were on a beach, and I just let her have a run.
Okay.
And the smile on her face of just doing that free running was just, I don't think I will ever forget that. It was just so heartwarming. And it, some people will say, oh, they're made to run.
Mm.
No, they're born to run.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really something they enjoy doing.
Mm.
Um, and it scared probably quite a number of Dutch people because the breed isn't that well known in the Netherlands. And if you got a dog coming at 40 miles an hour
Straight
towards you,
past
it's
you.
like, ah!
That's good to
But
know, though, for people to know if they can go somewhere safe, obviously secure, if they can let their greyhounds have that run. I think that's really nice advice.
yes, it is. And with Charlotte, I had good recall.
Mm.
Now that's another element which is
Mm.
very fascinating.
Mm.
And this is whilst I had good recall with Charlotte,
Mm.
in terms of what can sometimes happen, and I've had it a number of times with Charlotte,
Mm.
where she picked up a scent,
Mm.
and it's usually rabbits,
Mhm.
and it's almost like a switch is flicked. Um, and they will just go about, and recall goes out of the window. There is absolutely none because they are so focused on their natural desire to
Yeah.
follow the scent.
Mhm.
And it's also very interesting when they actually look at you. And I had that with Charlotte because when I called her and she looks at me, and it was almost a bit like whether she was thinking, I know you, but I'm not sure what.
Oh, like it's just in a dream, almost in a
It's a
glaze.
very
Yeah.
vacant look
Yeah.
that they get. And whatever training and however good it is,
Mm.
it's out of the window.
Mm.
And it's really something to because I've had it in a forest, I've had it
Yeah.
in grassland areas
Yeah.
where there are rabbits,
Mm.
and you can just see her go, and it's almost
Okay.
like you've lost her for a bit.
Yeah.
And sometimes you need to be a little bit careful if you touch them because they might just respond. Um,
Okay.
um, but that's another thing that I've
Mm.
and it's mainly when they're off lead. These guys I don't let off lead for the
Yeah.
simple reason that obviously Caesar is too reactive
Mhm.
and can potentially just decide to go for a dog. So
Yeah.
I've said no.
Mm.
uh,
I
we
think,
go
yeah,
to the
you're right. You have to be very almost saying to owners, don't worry if you can't let them off the lead, because that's quite normal for greyhounds to not be able to go off.
Well,
And
they can go off, providing that you are making sure that because to me it's not just about the greyhounds in a way. One of the things I find sometimes a bit disturbing
mm,
is that people let the dogs off the lead and they have no control.
yeah,
Um,
exactly. Yeah.
and then they come to my pack, if you like,
Mm.
and particularly if they're running, because
Mm.
their prey drive is so high,
Mm.
and that's also what they're bred for again.
Mm.
um, so if a small doggy is running, then they will respond to that and
Of
they will
course.
react. And sometimes I get the comment, "Oh, my dog is all right," and I have to
Yeah.
say, "Have you
Yeah.
thought about mine?"
Yeah. Sort
Mine
of.
may not be.
Yeah.
Um, so
Yeah.
it's one of those areas that can sometimes be
Mm.
challenging
Mm.
for any owner.
Yeah. No, I think that's
Now,
yeah, good to know for owners.
yeah,
Definitely. I think with them, is what we'll start to do. I think we'll start to wrap it up because I'm aware that we've taken a lot of your time. But is there anything that you wanted to add, or anything you particularly wanted to
yeah,
say to
yeah. There's a
finish?
couple of really important ones.
Mm.
So food.
Mm.
Make sure that you've got raised uh, food bowls. This is quite a fancy one,
Yeah, it's a
I
really
would
nice
say.
one. Yeah.
But there are some very simple ones, but because it can be quite a challenge
Mm-hmm.
for them to actually uh, eat from the floor
Mm-hmm.
because they really have to go down.
Yeah, physically
Now,
it'd be quite difficult
yeah,
to reach.
yeah.
So
So one peculiarity with greyhounds is the greyhound scream of death.
okay.
Um, now, what does that mean? It
Mm,
basically, and Charlotte has done it a couple of times. And when you
yeah.
first hear it, you completely freak out.
Okay.
Um, Charlotte, an example. She was off lead, playing
Mhm.
with some other dogs.
Mm,
She ran into one of them,
mm.
and that was literally screaming her head off, having her paw up. Um, and I was running to her and going, "What's going on? What's going on?" And
Oh.
then 2 seconds later, she was running again.
Oh, so
I checked her out, and nothing was up,
fine.
and
Yeah.
was off again. And this is the peculiarity with the greyhound,
Mhm.
and this is why if you do a search on the scream of death or
Okay.
greyhound scream of death, you get some really funny cartoons
Yeah.
about it, because it's really um, Barney last did it. He
Mm,
banged his paw against a child gate,
mm,
and again he was screaming his head off, and
mm.
looked and like, what's going on?
Oh, bless
But then I
him.
realized, scream of death again.
Oh, so it's good for people to know. Don't obviously check them out and make sure they're
Yeah,
okay, but don't panic too much if you hear it. It could be that they've just knocked themselves and they're fine.
yeah. They're absolutely fine. Now, the other thing that is sometimes mentioned is that greyhounds are difficult to train.
Okay.
Now, hopefully, this will work. Um,
Hmm.
so, what I would always say is, yes, they're not easy to train.
Hmm.
Uh, and the reason is because, one, they're hounds. It's a bit
Okay.
like terriers.
Yeah.
Uh, some people call them very stubborn.
Yeah.
No. They're independent thinkers. The job that they had to do
Mm.
originally, when they came about, was doing work away from the human. They're not relying on human
Of
instruction to
course.
do a task. So for terriers, it was usually ratting, flushing out foxes. So that for greyhounds, that was the same. They would go in the desert, get their prey, bring
Hmm.
it back to the owner, etc. Now, the sit instruction, and I'll show it here, is something you can train,
Okay.
but it's not something that I generally would recommend, because it can be a bit painful for them.
Yeah, a bit uncomfortable maybe. Looks like
Yeah,
it would be. Yeah.
because it's just the way that they're built, and it's the same with whippets. It can be quite uncomfortable for them to actually do the sit.
Mm.
Um, Now, I usually start this process with a couple of pillows behind them,
Oh.
and do the sit on a pillow. So Caesar will do a couple of uh, um, commands here.
Okay.
So it is possible to train greyhounds. You just need to have patience.
Okay. Oh, wow. Oh, that's brilliant. That's so nice to see. Yeah, because you don't often see a lot of people do find it difficult. So that's really lovely to see.
Yeah. Yeah, you can train them,
Yeah.
but you just need to make sure that you have a lot of patience,
Yeah.
and that's with any terrier or hound.
Yeah.
Patience is the first criteria on the human side
Yeah.
to have. If you're not patient, then you're probably just going to get frustrated, and it doesn't have the training at all.
Yeah, exactly. Oh,
But
brilliant.
so
Yeah.
as you can see, I'll do it again.
Yeah.
It certainly is possible.
Oh, it's lovely. Oh, Oh, brilliant. That's so nice to see. Thank you for sharing. I think it would be nice for other people to have inspiration that they can actually train their greyhounds in a nice way, being patient with it and let it come with time, which is brilliant. So
yeah. I mean, they know quite a number of instructions. I mean, at the football, they know they have to wait until I give the visible sign that they can go for their food. There are, as far as I'm concerned, and yesterday at a puppy training class where I volunteer at the training club. And I whip it and I said, okay, you need to make a decision what you feel you want to do, because it is possible to train. You just need to do it differently. I once saw a trainer that was in the Sand Run at the kennels, a trainer's literally forcing the greyhound down, putting pressure on their rear. And I told him off about that.
We don't
and I said, when I'm here, don't ever do that again. Because it's you need to understand that this breed doesn't naturally sit.
But you can get them to do it, which you have demonstrated so nicely. So that's brilliant. So I think if you just let people know, where can people find you? What's your website? I'll make sure it's also...
Okay, well, it's Talk of the Dog, and that's the business name.
Brilliant.
So it's simply www.talkofthedog.co.uk.
Brilliant. Okay, we'll make sure.
Had to think about that. And Facebook, they can find me also on the Talk of the Dog.
Brilliant. And I think anyone who's watching, if you have any questions, if you want help with your greyhound, you'll sound like you're definitely the person to speak to. So hopefully, the people that have been watching have learned a lot. I've learned a lot as well, which has been amazing. I love these pet chats because you do learn loads. And hopefully you'll get a few people come your way as well. So you've given us so much time, and I'm just so impressed with everything you've shared in your presentation. So I think that's everything we need for today. Thank you.
It was a joy doing it.
I'm pleased. And hopefully lots of people have learned lots about greyhounds. So thank you so
that's
much.
The main thing.
Thank you so much everyone for watching and listening, and we will catch you in the next Pet Chats. Bye.